Stop believing the scoreboard for a second, because what happened in this match wasn't a struggle, and it definitely wasn't a warning sign. It was something far more dangerous. On paper, it looks like Alexandra Eala dropped the first set and had to fight her way back. That's the version people are casually accepting. But if you actually look closer, if you really break down what unfolded point by point, this wasn't a comeback. It was control disguised as chaos. And the scary part? Most people didn't even notice it happening. The moment that first set ended 7-6, the entire narrative flipped against her. Analysts started leaning in, suggesting cracks were finally showing. You could almost feel the shift, like people were waiting for this exact moment to say, this is where it slows down. A tight tiebreak loss against a seasoned veteran? That's usually where momentum changes. That's where younger players hesitate. And for a brief second, it looked like the match was heading exactly in that direction. But that assumption turned out to be the biggest mistake anyone made that day. Because what looked like pressure was actually preparation. While the outside world saw a lost set, what was really happening was something much quieter and much more calculated. Eala didn't panic. No frustration, no emotional reaction, no visible drop in energy, just a reset. And that's where the difference started to show. Players trained in systems like the Rafael Nadal Academy aren't wired to collapse after losing a set. They're wired to adapt, to observe, to absorb everything happening on the court and store it. So while her opponent was celebrating a hard-earned edge, Eala was already solving the match in her head. And then, without warning, everything shifted. The second set didn't feel like a response, it felt like a takeover. 6-3, clean, controlled, and almost clinical. The rallies got longer, but somehow easier for her. The points started tilting in one direction, and by the time the third set rolled around, it wasn't even a question anymore. Another 6-3. Same pattern, same pressure. But this time, you could see it. Her opponent wasn't just losing points, she was losing rhythm, confidence, and eventually control of the match entirely. But the real story isn't those set scores, it's what was happening underneath them. There's one number that changes everything once you notice it. 21. That's how many break point opportunities Alexandra Eala created in this match. And if that doesn't sound insane right away, here's the context. In most professional matches, creating 5 or 6 break points means you're playing well. 10 means you're dominating. 21? That's something else entirely. That's not just pressure, it's constant threat. It means nearly every service game your opponent plays feels like survival. No breathing room, no reset, just point after point where one mistake can flip everything. And even though she converted only a portion of those chances, that's not the point. The damage was already done long before conversion mattered. Because mentally, being pushed to the edge that many times changes how you play. It forces hesitation, it drains energy, it makes every serve feel heavier. And slowly, that pressure starts breaking things down. Not instantly, but over time. That's exactly what happened here. And it didn't stop there. On paper, her opponent actually had a strong serving performance, a high first serve percentage, around 73%. Normally, that's a foundation for control. That's how experienced players dictate matches. But in this case, it didn't translate, because even when those serves landed, the points didn't stay in her control. Eala kept neutralizing them, returning deep, extending rallies, flipping defense into offense within seconds. So instead of quick, easy points, those serves turned into long exchanges, and more often than not, Eala was the one finishing them. Now compare that to the other side. When Eala landed her first serve, the outcome looked completely different. She was winning a dominant share of those points, shorter rallies, cleaner finishes, total control from the first shot. That contrast between how each player handled the same situation is where the real gap shows up. One player serving well but gaining nothing from it, the other serving well and taking over immediately. And then there's the return game. This is where things get even more one-sided. Eala wasn't just holding her own on return, she was dictating, winning more return points overall, turning defensive positions into attacking ones. It's one thing to break serve occasionally, it's another to consistently take control of points that aren't even supposed to be yours. That's what separates good performances from dominant ones, and in this match, that difference was impossible to ignore. By the end, the total points tell the story clearly. A noticeable gap, not massive at first glance, but in a match like this, it's everything. Because those extra points weren't random, they were earned through sustained pressure, better decisions, and stronger execution in key moments. Add in the streaks of consecutive games, and you start to see the pattern. Once Eala gained control, she didn't give it back. And this is where the conversation gets bigger than just one match, because performances like this don't go unnoticed, especially not by the players she's competing against. There's been growing discussion around what her rise actually means for the rest of the field. Some reports suggest that players are starting to realize there isn't a clear strategy against her anymore. Power doesn't overwhelm her, tactical play doesn't outlast her, and when someone can handle both ends of that spectrum, it creates a very uncomfortable reality for everyone else. Now, to be clear, one match doesn't define an entire era, but it can signal something. And right now, there's a lot of talk about what this might represent. A shift in consistency, a new level of mental resilience, the kind of player who doesn't just rely on momentum, but builds it, controls it, and sustains it across an entire match. So when people look back at this result, they might focus on the lost first set, but that misses the bigger picture. Because what followed wasn't recovery, it was escalation. It was a clear adjustment, followed by complete control. And that's a very different story than the one being casually told. Now the real question is simple. Was this just another strong performance, or was it a preview of something much bigger? Because if this level becomes the standard, then the conversation around who can actually stop her starts getting very interesting.